Larry Goldberg seems to me to be as giddy as Larry Goldberg gets. Is that fair, Larry?
I think that's fair.
So, just to go ahead, top down, talk to me about the call. Everybody's
You
heard,
know,
but
I always say before these calls that the stock price in these calls don't depend upon the financial results. They depend upon, which Elon turns up to the call.
right.
And when I heard the first paragraph, the first sentence of Elon's opening remarks, I thought, this is, the best Elon that could turn up. I mean, he was present. He was excited. He was really, really motivated. And you could hear every sentence. He was just brimming with excitement for this company. And, I mean, he's been at this company, you go back, 20 years. He's been
Yeah.
grinding it for 20 years, and yet he's still excited like a little boy. And he has he has every reason to be. Look, nobody starts a car company expecting to be successful.
Right. He said
He
10%,
said it.
10,
He said
10%
it.
chance of success. Yeah.
And he hasn't only been successful as a car company, but he's built on this car company platform this amazing launch pad for some incredibly important technologies. And, he is succeeding at it. So, I can definitely account for his excitement. And I'm terribly excited as well. It takes a lot to get me even more excited about Tesla than I have been. But I just the last couple of days, and I've added a little to my Tesla investment. And
I,
so
I added the morning of, Larry. I,
good
I
for you.
had I added it at 391.
Good
So
for you.
yeah, I was already excited before the call started.
Look,
So
I don't know that the share price is going to go up from this point. I think it could well meander down as well,
never know.
just as easily as it could meander up. That's not the point of the
Sure.
of adding to the share price, and nobody should think about that they're going to suddenly make a buck out of it.
No, no, no. Yeah, well, you could. I mean, sure, there are people that do that, but Larry, we're in it. We're in it because we
Yeah.
think it's going to go crazy. What were your big takeaways?
I mean, the
His
central takeaway was that they feel sufficiently confident to roll out FS to roll out a full service, a robotaxi service in June,
right.
and they're working towards that. And I wouldn't have felt as excited as I am now if I hadn't just driven with FSD all the way from Florida
Yes.
without intervention. I mean, I drove to Florida and I drove back from Florida, and the car constantly shocked me with its capabilities. Look, it's not perfect. There's that I call it the last inch,
Yeah.
not the last mile. Actually, it's the last few meters, which parking place it gets to. Look, the first leg of the journey down to Florida, the car took off, on FSD all the way unassisted, gets to the supercharger, drives into the parking lot, confidently drives into the parking lot of this large mall, finds the supercharger and reverses back and stops ready to be charged. I was just blown away. Uh,
I
but
can't even do that. I can't even do that. I end up going into those parking structures, driving around, looking to see
trying to
anyone.
find, yeah, I know. I've been there too. But it was fantastic. Now, I will say that during the course of the trip, it didn't do that well in parking on at superchargers. From time to time, it would just stop in front of the supercharger bank and then
Yeah.
you're up, you have to park it yourself. But that first drive and then all the way back from Florida, it was completely without intervention. And I'm talking about not even for comfort purposes, not even for preference purposes. Just it took care of us. It was amazing. I was really, really pleased.
Yeah,
Really
I
pleased.
thought that was interesting that Elon said that people actually disengage so they can text and then they re-engage. Because
Yeah, I text without disengaging. I got
you,
4
you hold it,
strikes.
what do you hold up like this? Or
Yeah, I had 4 strikes against me during this trip. And it's all because I became so comfortable
yeah, yeah.
that I kind of, I lost track of the fact that I wasn't driving. It's bad, I guess,
I
but
suppose.
some of the maneuvers that it pulled off are just, I was floored by them, and I don't even have the very latest version.
Yeah, yeah. They're saying that the .6 is a really, another improvement that you can literally tell, the
Yeah, I
difference.
saw Chaz said that it had solved the issues that he had in the previous version. I don't have any.
Issues. Yeah.
I don't have any really consistent issues, other than it gives me these dings, which I'm really.
So somebody mentioned that he was only remaining issue for him is that sometimes it takes a different route and he knows that his route is better. And I thought to myself, yeah, my last trip through Los Angeles from the Riverside area to the West LA side, it twice it wanted to take me on a route that I thought was not going to be as good as the route that I normally take. And then all of a sudden I was in bumper to bumper traffic, stop and go. And maybe it was taking me off the freeway because it had a smarter, workaround that it was going to take. So this fellow may have been incorrect in his assumption. Were you surprised as I was? Well, I can't say that I was that surprised. I actually predicted that they would announce another a super, mega factory. I actually suggested they might even do 2 mega factories. But were you surprised that they announced one was already under construction?
Yeah, I actually believe, and there's been some debate about it, but I believe that this is the factory under construction, one of the plants that is under construction in Berlin as
Oh,
part of the expansion of Berlin. That's
oh,
what I
okay.
believe.
All
Because
right.
that's the continent that's not currently served.
Yep.
I had predicted that they would have to provide one in Europe. They're already doing installations in Europe. So I would be surprised if it's not Europe.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And yeah, so the biggest question that came out of the meeting, in my opinion, was this whole question on batteries. That was a big surprise to me. I
Yeah.
had no idea that they were short batteries. I put out a large X post yesterday on this in terms of the questions I now have about which products are being impacted, what workarounds do they think they have, what's wrong with all these new factories that are being built. Anyway, what did you think about the battery situation?
So I wasn't that surprised. I realized that there are significant issues around lithium iron phosphate batteries, and supply of them because of the tariffs. Um, so I could see that. And then the other thing is that, they have the semi coming online at the end of the year that's gonna just absorb a huge amount of batteries. And of course, the mega packs are absorbing a lot of batteries.
Right, right.
And so I think batteries are a big issue. My own Look, I tweeted to Elon, please let's have another battery day
Yeah,
because I'd love to know what the strategy is. But look, it's a fair statement. And I think that it's worth drilling into where they are on batteries. So they'll solve the problem. They always do, and I trust that they will. But I can see that just the volume of stuff that they have coming down the pike is going to be very significant.
Right. So they mentioned that they used a plural when they were talking about the Model Q, that it would be vehicles. In
Yes.
fact, they used the plural twice in that sentence. We've always been assuming the first vehicle would be a hatchback. Do you have any theory about what a second vehicle might be?
Well, they didn't use plural in regard to the Model Q. They used plural as regards to vehicles. So whether that could be the Robovan, I know some people pronounce it Robovan.
Right.
For me, it's a Robovan. Um, so they could well be referring to that. They could be referring to multiple variants of the cheaper model, what
Right.
you call the Model Q, you know, a sedan, a hatchback, or whatever. So I'm not going to try and second guess that. Um, there, the vehicle company is going to have to continue building new models and iterating on existing models and so on. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, and then for Juniper, I was hoping they would give us just a minute of. I was hoping that one of the darn outside questioners, one of the press, who asked the worst questions ever. I was,
Ever.
I was just horrible. I was hoping that one of them was going to say, "How's the rollout going of Juniper? Can we have some numbers, please, or some indication of what's happening?" Now, this morning, I saw that they've already run out of the white interior. So that was interesting that they would already be out of white. But do you have any feeling, any sense of how Juniper's going in the US?
None
Because
at all.
none at
None.
all. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the big miss in terms of the questions. I saw on say that it was one of the questions. I don't know why it wasn't voted up.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems that it's a big miss. I mean, not knowing what the rollout plans are. And look, we know that it is due to come out in North America. We just don't know what numbers and what dates and so on. They said this month, but this year in the month of February. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've certainly had a lot of people on X send me a copy of their purchase order, or the fact that they've ordered one. So
Well,
I think,
Sawyer's getting one. He calls it one of the launch
yeah, right.
versions, so or initial version, or what I don't remember
It's called
exactly.
launch. It's called launch. Yeah,
Launch, yeah.
yeah.
So apparently some people have been advised they're getting it. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It's a bit.
Yeah. Well, so AJ says this morning, he says that the first quarter could be a real, real rough quarter. What have you thought about the first quarter yet with not very many Model Ys probably being made and shipped?
They're going to have to give a very significant discount on the last Model Ys, and they'll ship those. They're still making them,
Mhm.
I guess, to fulfill some orders that perhaps remain. Um, Look, end of line, end of model
Mhm.
is always a tough, passage for an auto company.
Sure.
And that's why they staggered the Model 3 and then the Model Y. And even the Model Y, they're staggering between plants. So it is going to be a rough quarter. There's no doubt about it. You know, um, some of the pundits, Troy, for example, are being very, very cautious about this year. They see only the downside possibilities. But I think there's a lot of upside. I think, Juniper could take off in a big way in the last three quarters. Um, so we'll see. We'll see.
Well, my feeling has always been that once if Robotaxi is going to launch in June, that means we're going to have to be unsupervised for everybody. You're not going to launch Robotaxi without being,
Not true.
oh, really? Okay.
Not true. Not true. You could have Robotaxi be unsupervised or even have super. I mean, there are a lot of people published that they're going to have safety drivers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I that's not what I read.
I don't think so.
I read the transcript very carefully. He definitely did not. He definitely said that they would be driverless, which doesn't mean that they wouldn't have a supervisory driver, but I think he would have said that in that case. But they could well limit the use of autonomy to those robotaxis in that particular locale.
Hmm.
And I think they will.
Hmm.
So to think that they'd allow everybody in the United States to go driverless, they would need to have approval in all those jurisdictions, and they don't have it.
No,
So
so I'm not saying they would be allowed to put their cars out for Robotaxi, only
no,
that,
no, 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 no. Even to drive unsupervised, they would need approval in those jurisdictions.
really? Okay.
Yeah, at least NHTSA's approval, but certainly in the jurisdictions, because North Carolina licenses independently from California, for example. So California may say it's okay, or they may not, but
Mhm.
North Carolina is going to say, what are the requirements for driving that vehicle? And they're certainly not going to take, California say so, and they're not necessarily even going to take the federal say so. So it is state by state by state. And simply because they get approval by California to drive or by Texas to drive in, this to Austin, Texas.
Right.
And by the way, Austin requires a safety driver. So, Waymo is driving with safety drivers. So
Austin, okay.
we'll see. We'll
Okay.
see.
All right. Yeah, because I was kind of thinking it would work the opposite way, where where they would start sending out the unsupervised to the Chuck Cooks, et cetera. And just like they would on any other
But
update.
Florida doesn't permit, does Florida permit driverless vehicles?
Right, right. As far as I know, what what we've heard over the years, I haven't done any digging at all, is that in most states, there's no rules. So it would be
No,
like,
that's not true. It's
okay.
the other way around. In most states, there are rules.
And the rule is,
There has to be a driver in the car.
oh, that there has to be a driver in the car. Okay. All right. And so,
Absolutely. That's absolutely the rule in North Carolina. I believe it's the rule in Florida. It's absolutely the rule in most states in my judgment.
okay. So we would assume then that Tesla would be in every one of these states, or at least the big ones. I mean, let's face it, something like 60 or 70% of the Teslas in the United States are in California. So we know that they're gonna, hopefully get California to approve driverless vehicles. They said it was like the second state. So,
I think so California are not going to do a blanket approval of driverless vehicles. That's in my judgment.
mhm.
I think it's going to be locale by locale by locale. So
Oh,
so I think it's, we're a long way from anywhere where we're going to get state level or country level approval. I think it's going to be locale by locale.
hmm. Okay. All right.
For example, Palo Alto apparently are keen to get started right away with driverless vehicles.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That should be something that we get more color on from Tesla. Tesla should be providing, I think, as shareholders, it would seem like they would give us more
The
information.
reason they haven't given us color is because they're negotiating, obviously, at multiple
Yes.
levels. And so I think it's going to be very difficult for them to front run their negotiations.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why I think we're not getting it.
Semi-truck, we had
By the way, I'm no expert in this field.
right,
There are
right.
there are people in our community who are experts who will tell me that I'm either crazy or I'm wrong or whatever. So I'm no expert, but that's my understanding, and that's what I've been led to believe.
All right. Well, now I'm challenged. I think I have to go do a deep dive.
And by the way, don't trust anybody who tells you they're the expert in the field. I
Right.
think it's one of those fields that there are very few people who really know every level of the law.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Semi-truck, we had heard it both ways. We had heard that semi-truck was going to not start ramping until the end of the year. And then we'd heard, that it looked like the factory is like ready to go. And
No, the factory's a
yeah,
long way from ready to go. Long way. They're still building
ramping.
the foundations for the press. I mean, they're a long way to go. You can there's a guy who does the flyovers,
Right, right.
Zengler.
Yeah,
He
Zingler.
does the flyovers. He does a very good job of it. And there's another 6 months of build to go. They are beginning to install equipment,
Right,
but they'll be installing equipment through the year. And I don't think we'll see build out of there until the last quarter, maybe if we're lucky. And then, next they'll start ramping next year. That's what Elon said in
right,
the call. They will begin
right.
ramping next year.
Yeah, that's what I originally thought. And then I had been convinced otherwise, but okay. So next year,
Whoever's convincing you otherwise, they should reread
that's
exactly what Elon said, but they should also look at Zengler, because if you look at Zengler, they don't have the presses installed yet because they haven't completed the foundation for the presses
right,
yet.
right, right, right. So the the kind of one of my takeaways is that I thought as an optimist, I had my opinions about all these things. And then there was the bears that had their opinions about all these things. And it was almost like most of them it was cut down the middle. So it was like halfway between the optimist and the pessimist version of how things are going to roll out. And I think you've said before, like, okay, does it really matter whether the robotaxi is fully launched by June or by July or by August? At the end of the day, if it's fully launched, our fortunes are made.
Well, I don't know about fortunes being made, but I mean, I regard the fortunes as being fairly high probability, but a long way from being made yet.
Yeah, well, except for Optimus. That one's so obvious. It's hard to
They've got to get, there's 2 years to go yet.
two
Every,
years. 2 years. Wait,
yeah, there's
we've
the
already
whole
had
of
that
this
discussion.
year. There's the whole of this year where they're beginning to
Right. Use it in the factory.
move them into the factories. And then there's next year they're starting to ramp. That ramp's going to be painful. And so before the real numbers start rolling in, there's 2 years to go. And everybody so Elon is actually being quite cautious, and he's giving you the caution, and everybody reads this stuff and then just thinks, oh, it's happening tomorrow. It's not happening tomorrow.
So, but his cautious day was second half and 50,000.
No,
Yeah. Because he
no.
said 50 to 100,000. And then at first he said,
That's for next year.
yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So he said 50 to 100,000. And then he said beginning of the year. And he said cautiously the middle of the year and cautiously 50,000. So then,
But that stuff's not going to be delivered and start hitting the bottom line until the end of next year.
okay,
Trust me.
that was another one of my huge takeaways that he said he's going to price it at market. That was very happy. It was music to my ears. He's a price it at market because you've done those studies.
Yeah. Amazing.
So
Amazing.
I've upped my number to 120,000 a month to rent.
$120,000 a month
I'm
to
sorry,
rent.
a year.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, look, $120,000 a month, a year to
Yeah.
rent, I think is reasonable. I don't think it's unreasonable.
No, I don't either.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
we had been talking 60 to 70. I'm like, everybody in the community had practically agreed on 60 to 70,000 month per year to rent. And that was based, I think, on the idea that Elon would want to be nice. But he said it's market. So to me, I think the market is at least 120,000.
Look, the market is going to depend upon what the competition does and how quickly the competition ramps and how they position their bots and where Tesla stands in terms of competition. But I don't think 120,000 a year. I think the bots are going to be priced at about at the $250,000 mark next year
To sell.
to sell, and 120 a year rent is about right. I mean, it could be plus or minus 25%. So I'm not I'm aligned with you on this.
Yeah, and the same thing affects Robotaxi. I don't know if you and I have talked since I talked to Robert Scoble, and Robert had done, some actual in the field analysis, and the what do you call it? Waymo is charging way more for a ride than Uber is. So if that's true, then the
Waymo's got a handful of cars. Waymo's got 500 or 700 cars. That's not going to be the Tesla model. Tesla is going to have a lot more cars. They may start out for the first quarter or the first 6 months with several hundred cars, but they're going to scale very quickly after that.
Right.
And they're going to get from 500, 700 cars in the first quarter or so. They're going to start adding cars by the 1,000, which Waymo are not able to do. And so that may change their strategy, their pricing strategy very dramatically. So don't compare anything to Waymo. Waymo's, LiDAR, very expensive cars. They're not a manufacturer. They don't have a car that's built for ride hail. Look, at the outset, Tesla's going to have a few cars, going to be feeling their way, going to take it step by step, going to charge quite a lot of money, blah, 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 blah. But once they start scaling, that scaling is going to be dramatic, and the prices are going to compress fairly dramatically. Maybe not at peak hour. Maybe at peak hour they'll take advantage of it, but the prices are going to compress, and they're going to scale very rapidly.
Now, what he had found, though, was from a marketing standpoint, people were willing to pay more to not have a driver. And so this was him doing interviews.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's no doubt about it. But remember what Tesla's strategy is. The pay more for no driver is really somebody who's looking to rent the car to go to a party or to go out, to eat, to have dinner or so on and so forth. Tesla's strategy is to replace the vehicle, to replace the car.
Right.
Is for this to be the standard of transport. That's a different pricing model entirely. So Robert may be right. I mean, he's dead on if Tesla mean to put 1,000 cars or even 10,000 cars on the road. But Tesla mean to put millions of cars on the road.
Yeah, I was looking at it as skim the cream, Larry, that as they go out initially,
they need volume. They're going to build this thing on the unbox method. They're going to volume. They want tens and tens of thousands of cars on the road in year 2. And to do that, they want to replace the car as a utility in the home. So they want to replace everybody's second or third car. And ultimately everybody's first car, but at least everybody's second or third car. So Robert's right, and that's kind of a factor, but it's only a factor during the early ramp-up stage. But once they start scaling, it's a different product. You've got to understand that what Uber are doing is the product everybody's focused on. What Waymo are doing is the product everybody's looking as being the new product. That's not the product that Tesla is selling. You got to think product. Tesla is selling a product to replace the motor car, the vehicle, the auto that people use in their home. And at first, they'll only be replacing the second car. but ultimately they're replacing all vehicles. And so pricing changes the whole calculation.
Right. So my theory only would be that the first probably 24 months, you're replacing Uber, Lyft, taxi cabs, maybe some private what do you call it? Public transit. You're replacing teenagers are making the decision not to
Yeah,
buy.
I don't know the rate at which they'll scale. I don't know if it's going to be 24 months or 2 months or 6 months or 8 months. I don't know. All I know is that they're going to build, after that first 6 months of ramp up,
Mhm.
they're going to have an awesome
Yeah.
capacity to manufacture.
Oh,
Once
plus
they
ones
get
that are
to,
already built.
once they get to that point, all bets are off on the replace Uber thing. They have to scale at enormous rates in every city, state, locale. So, maybe you're right, 2 years, but that would be far to the outside of the project. I'm thinking, like the second year, they'll be scaling by the 10,000 a month.
Yeah.
20,000 a month.
Yeah.
Those numbers they just beggar the whole Uber and certainly beggar the Waymo, but start obliterating the Uber. So they have to be thinking pricing by the seventh month. They have to start thinking, volume pricing.
Okay, we're running out of time. I do want to ask
Okay.
you about the economy, about Trump, and about the Fed, and about the PCE, but maybe that's all one thing.
Yeah.
So how do
Yeah.
you feel right now about, that when does the Fed and the bond market believe Trump and DOGE? That's kind of what it boils down to.
It's going to take a while. Um, but man, he's come out of the gate with some huge moves. I mean, it's very difficult to tell how these moves are going to play out, but man, they are some really big moves. And Doge isn't messing around.
Yeah.
They are, I mean, he is roiling. I don't know how many court cases the sort of deep state is going to try and bring up, but he's just moving at such a speed that they're completely blinded by what's going on. And so I don't know if they know where to turn. I mean, they will bring federal case after federal case after federal case, and he'll just keep moving.
Right.
It is amazing. I mean, I don't know how it ends, but man, it started with a bang.
Yeah. Somebody called it a shotgun approach. You're throwing so much at them because you've got all these, people that are primed. They've been talking about this for months. And so they just came in and da boom, da boom, da boom.
I don't think any administration has prepared the depth and the extent that they've prepared. And this Senate may turn back one or two of their appointments, in particular Robert Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard. But I'll tell you, they've probably got the backups lined up, and they're coming with all guns blazing, and they are completely obliterating they're blindsiding these people. But I mean, when you look at it, it is staggering. It is staggering. I saw an organization chart of a school of a school system, some suburban school system, organization chart of the DEI structure,
The DEI structure.
the DEI management structure of a school system. It was like 53 places, 5 or 6 organization levels deep. What? And federal dollars are going into this. What? I mean, you know, I went to a school system, one of the finest in the country in 1964 in Scarsdale, New York, one of the finest public school systems. And they had an education department that was staffed by 7 people.
Yeah, I know. I know. I know. Yeah.
And here is some school system in Virginia where just the DEI governance is staffed by 53 full-time people. And these people are not earning, small beer.
Oh,
So, it's so endemic. The problems are so deep, and these guys are taking a hatchet. I mean, they are. And, the interesting thing is the opposition is embarrassed.
yeah, it seems that way. I look at I've been in high school, I was a debate champion. And then I went to law school. So that's, a decent law school, like number 9 in the country. And that should have made me better at analyzing and debating and stuff. So I really can look at the debate on X in terms of skill
Yeah.
sets. And man, the way that the left is coming at the arguments right now,
Name calling. They've resorted to name calling. That's all they've got left.
nonsense. Nonsense. Yeah. There's nothing of substance coming from the left.
Nothing of substance.
Nothing.
It's name calling.
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't have a lot of hope for now the bonds have come down a bit. The
Yeah.
yields have come down a bit. But you think it's going to take more. It's going to take.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've got to see, this, the appointment of the cabinet members. We've got to see the first reconciliation bill through.
Okay.
And I think if we can get that, if Trump can get his reconciliation bill through, which is not a given,
Right.
but if they can get that through, within 3 months and bed down and get these and, institute these tariffs. I mean, he's coming out with tariffs tomorrow, which is a shocker, absolute shocker, and, I had this argument on X today with, people I really deeply respect, and they're telling me why this is a bad idea. And I said, all your theory is correct. Your theories are absolutely correct, but China is not playing to your theory. This is not China acting like the WTO requires them to act. They've broken every rule in the book, and they're the people who are setting up in Mexico. They're arguing about, well, China's only 0.2% in Mexico, but no. China goes from 0.2 to 200% in like light speed. So all of these arguments we heard for years and years and years, those times are gone. So we have to see Trump, we have to see this blitzkrieg that he has going. We have to see it succeed in reality with a reconciliation bill that contains his tax breaks, he's got his tariffs because he can just do that by executive action, but we've got to see him actually fund these departments at the rates he wants to fund them. And then I'll be able to, then I'm aligned that, we'll see interest rates collapse.
Okay.
But right now, until that happens, I don't see that happening.
Okay. Yeah, my hope would be, and maybe it's a silly hope on my part. The optimism in me is that if they continue to see DOGE successfully, meaning no major lawsuits that are getting in the way, but they successfully continue to actually lop off, billions of dollars of spending, that there might be a point at which at least the bond people start to go, starting to look to me like this is going to happen. I better get ahead of it.
But it's a multi-pronged attack. It's not just DOGE. It's also the reconciliation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's also, I mean, the DOGE thing is just the size of the federal government. And by the way, the problem with the federal government is not the employees. It's all the consultants.
Yeah, the contract laborers. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they need to put a stop. They need to put a stop order out on any contracting of any nature whatsoever, and then start from the beginning again. And maybe that's what they'll do.
Maybe.
So, yeah.
All right. Okay. You know what, Larry? Given how long we've gone, I'm going to ask people to give me a break and no numbers today. You'll have to look them up yourself. And I'll talk about the numbers sometime tomorrow. And certainly on Sunday night at the regular programming, what we call Monday morning show on Sunday night. And so Larry, thank you as always for coming on and going through this, because I knew you'd have another take, because that's why they like you best.
I guess that's one way of telling me I've spoken too much tonight. I apologize.
No. That's you get my highest numbers, Larry. They like the fact that you don't just let me get away with anything over here.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, thanks very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
You as well, and all of you out there. It's been great talking to you.